Welcome to PLZ Soccer on our YouTube channel. I'm Peter Martin. Neil Lennon joins me here in the studio. Neil, great to have you here with us. I suppose we'll deal first and foremost with the big issue that's just come out. Willie Collum on the SFA site has accepted that a mistake was made with VAR and Rangers should have had a penalty in the Premier Sports Cup final. What's your immediate reaction to that?
Well, fully saying that, then it's unacceptable because you have a referee, you have two or three officials in the, watching the game, slowing it down. It's a cup final. These decisions have to be right, Peter. So Willie's fronted it up and come out and said, yes, it's unacceptable, and I agree with him, so it has to be better. I don't know. And it's all right having the Monday morning quarterback routine and calling these things out in hindsight, but they should be getting it right on the day.
Has he left himself and the SFA and the referees wide open with this honesty, with this transparency? Because a lot of people are very, very angry.
Yeah, I think, look, they're going to come in for some incredible criticism now from one half of the city, and that's understandable. That's just natural because it's a big moment in a big game. And you expect the officials to get these, with all the technology that we have now, and the bodies around it, to get it right.
We didn't think it was a penalty when we were in real time.
No.
When we looked at it back with the value of a replay, I thought it was a penalty. So that calls into question the professionalism of the people in VAR who are looking there. If we can see it on a replay, why can't they?
I don't know. Unless they've made the decision too quickly. And, we were talking off air about, if Willie is the head of the referees, then for me, should he not be there? When these, for a big game especially.
So you're talking about a set of VAR officials with the assistant VAR and Willie almost like an overview for the big cup finals.
Well, either Willie or somebody of a senior standard in the refereeing association. Because Willie has come out today and basically castigated the guys who have made that decision. And if it came down to understanding of the game, then Willie would be number one in that aspect, and you would like someone of that stature to be calling those decisions.
Now, he said that he's going to act as if he were a manager of a football team and there will be accountability. Now, that suggests behind the scenes he's just going to make sure that they're taken out of those senior games.
Yeah, if you have a bad game, then you get taken out. But, that's no consolation to the Rangers fans or the Rangers players or the Rangers manager. The decision's gone now. And it could have, it would have had a huge impact in a cup final.
What do you think, obviously over the last couple of days, even the chief executive of the SFA, Ian Maxwell, has had to come out and defend his organisation because there has been, and again, the nature of the city, accusations of refereeing bias.
Look, it's always a natural instinct after a game of this magnitude and the rivalry. I think it's difficult to blame the head of the SFA for a decision that's made on the pitch in that moment of time. So, we've been told for many years, and you wouldn't like to think there's any sort of bias at all. So, for me, it's not bias, it's just incompetence.
Yeah. I don't think is there any need for any further investigation into this?
No, I don't think so. I think it's out there now. There'll be a fallout from this, for the next week or so, or down the line or whatever. But at least Willie has been honest and upfront. But it's still unacceptable, Peter. It's 2024. We're coming into 2025. We should not be making these kind of mistakes in the games, in any games at the highest level, but particularly one of that magnitude.
I'm glad you said that because, quite simply, a lot of managers and players are saying, oh yes, there's calls for an investigation, there's consternation, there's anger when it involves Celtic and Rangers. But you only have to look at the managers over the last week who've come out and said VAR is not up to the standard. In some cases, they feel it's gone back the way, getting decisions wrong.
Yeah, and you know why? Because the manager's job's on the line sometimes. He's the one who has to accept these really, you say accept, and they're really, really hard to accept, when you have a different view on the laws of the game, or you're right and they're wrong, and it's costing you and your team points. So there's a whole sort of overview that needs to be improved upon from my point of view. This shouldn't be we shouldn't be talking about VAR anymore. It should just look after itself. Now, you can talk about interpretation of the rules and how one individual sees it, but when I look at Willie, he is cast iron in that decision. And if that is the letter of the law, then all those decisions should go with the letter of the law, and then we wouldn't be having these controversies.
Yeah. What would you like to see happen with VAR moving forward?
Just the decisions, just coming to the correct decision. You know, I don't think there's any dishonesty involved. I just think that I was at the game on Sunday, and the decision was made very, very quickly. It was looked at very, very quickly, and maybe they just needed to take a little bit more time on looking at it from, you know, various angles and getting the correct decision.
Should we have a situation where the conversation between VAR and referee is released quicker so that the paying public know exactly what's happening? So you don't, I mean, I've heard some ludicrous situation and suggestion that, they should replay the match, which is just a complete nonsense. He made a mistake.
Yeah.
But to give people a greater insight into when the decision is made, should we have access to, like they do in American football, that discussion to say, here's why it was made, this is the decision, move on?
It's not a bad idea, but it gives supporters clarity. But then again, they're still not always going to agree with the decision and how they see it, or how the individual sees it. But yeah, I think, you know, we're 3-4 days down the line, and we're only getting clarity from the head of the referees today. So yeah, I think this has rumbled on for too long, and I think it would make everybody's life easier if we could have a clearer picture of why those decisions were made, and quicker.
And do we need that final word from Willie Collum to say, okay, mistake, move on, penalty that is going to be made here is on the VAR officials? Is there anything else he needs to say?
That's a good question. I just think it's put Willie in a difficult position, and to be fair, I admire him for coming out and calling it as it is. So there is that transparency there, there is that accountability there, and unfortunately for the people who made that decision, there's going to be a suspension or a punishment. But that's the rules. You've got to get these decisions right. There's so much riding on it for everyone involved, and look, it would have had a bearing on the game, Peter. It's a huge decision that's gone against Rangers. So, you know, and for me, there's no excuse now to get these decisions wrong.
Is it time for Rangers to move on?
Yeah, they'll have to. Yeah, I mean, they put in a great performance. You know, they've closed the gap. There will sort of be regrets about it, but you know, they had opportunities in the game where, you know, they could have done better in certain situations, as well as refereeing decisions. So yeah, it's done now, and you just got to use that as a motivation, I suppose.
That's the issue over refereeing decisions. Psychologically, as you look at the overview of that game, ultimately, even with a decision that has gone against Rangers, they just couldn't get over the line with that fine penalty decision. They've been in a situation before where they've been the better side, and Christopher Julian pops up and scores a goal in a League Cup final. As they close the gap, what do you think they need to do? Is there a psychological block there to try and get the big result? And January 2nd, obviously, is where we're heading to.
Yeah, I didn't think there was much wrong with the performance. There was a pivotal moment in the game for me, the 4-against-1, which is, you know, you never see it in football. And for whatever reason, they didn't take. To be fair, Vickers did brilliantly, but, you know, if you're in that situation, you're expecting your team to at least get a shot off. And that would have made it 2-0 if they'd have scored, and would have been a long way back for Celtic. It almost acted as a galvaniser for Celtic, and they were, you know, the quality that Celtic have, you know, and sometimes we take their performances for granted as well. You know that this Celtic team are going to score. I thought Rangers, particularly in the first half, played very, very well, and a totally different performance from what they showed at Celtic Park. So there were huge signs of improvement there. And people say, well, they're closing the gap. Well, they were a penalty kick away from actually winning. So they've got to take a lot of motivation and encouragement from that, and, you know, use that motivation from losing, take it as a positive into the game against Celtic. From Celtic's point of view, you know, they've been amazing. they're just coming off it a little bit, which is totally understandable because they're human beings at the end of the day, but they'll galvanise themselves again.
Two quick things on that game. Do you think it now puts the match official for January 2nd under unbelievable pressure?
He's under a lot of scrutiny, isn't he? So, they're going to have to pick the best one. Well, I actually thought the referee had a good game overall in the final. And yes, I can understand why he gave a free kick in the first instance. But then when obviously it's on VAR to correct that. So there's no blame attached for me for the referee. But yeah, he's going to be under a lot of scrutiny for the second game now.
It becomes an unbearable pressure at times that I wouldn't take for all the money in the world because you're going into a match, Rangers at home, no away fans, which increases the pressure. So every call is scrutinised.
Yeah, but you just got to be, closed off to that and just be strong and just give the best performance and fair performance you can. And the support from assistant linesmen, from the people in the VAR, wagon, wherever it is. Got to get these decisions right, and then we can put a lot of this controversy to one side for a while.
Who do you think's the best man for the job?
I have no idea, honestly. Well, you've got your Nick Walsh, you've got Steve McLean, you've got Kevin Clancy. I don't know if John Beaton will be picked to do that one again. I don't know. But like I said, I didn't think the referee was that bad in the game overall. The game had so much going for it that you didn't really notice the referee in the game. So, I don't know, it'll be up to Willie, but I think Willie should be there in that VAR department, just making sure they get all the calls correct.
Yeah, and with that in mind, one trophy already decided, 2 up for grabs, Celtic with an 11-point lead. You mentioned Rangers closing the gap. Do you think Brendan will be looking and saying, okay, they closed the gap on the day, now it's time to go into their backyard and prove that they are champions-elect again?
Absolutely. They'll be motivated, Celtic, for this. I do think there's been a drop-off, from where they were, maybe against Leipzig. And again, that's understandable because the weight of expectation on them, Peter, with this unbeaten run domestically, this run of trophies domestically, people just expect them to keep going to the well and digging it out. And you've seen with Man City this season, it's really difficult to keep going. Now, what they have done is freshen the squad, the strength and depth. So I'll say they'll come out and they'll be really motivated for this game. They'll want to put a marker down. You
know what it's like. These games, although people read a lot into them and say, okay, there's a swing this way, there's a swing that way, it doesn't always work out like that. Does it give you a barometer? Because if anything, I think Philippe Clement deserves credit with the board for listening to him to say, look, it's got to be a long term here. You can't keep going through knee jerk of sacking managers. He's come out of a game with, I think, a lot of credit.
He has, yeah.
But he's laid down the gauntlet saying, we'll see you in January at Ibrox.
Well, he's got to back it up then. So if he has thrown the gauntlet down, then he's got to have his team spot on for this game. I think Celtic will be better at Ibrox. I've been in that scenario before where, you talked about the 2019 final. Our form going into that was great, but we just didn't turn up on the day. Celtic looked a little bit sort of, off the pace on Sunday, and Rangers threw everything at it. Now they've got over that sort of psychological hurdle, Celtic. There'll be a come down from it and they'll go again there, I think. I think they'll be really up for this game on the 2nd of January and wanting to prove a big point.
Yeah. Would you change anything drastically? If anything, the only thing that seemed to be the fallout from it was, and you know this from a manager's point of view, is Celtic fans became increasingly frustrated with their constant building from the back, which in the end invited Rangers onto them.
I just think they didn't start the game well, and there was a lethargy about them, particularly in their passing. And you have to give Rangers credit as well. They closed off the midfield, but once Brendan dropped the 2 fullbacks down in the second half and the pitch opened up, Celtic were a lot better. But both managers will have a lot to think about between now and then both managers will have a lot to think about on the day of the game.
How do you see it going, knowing that they have an 11-point advantage?
Well, it's a great advantage to have, and I think they'll want to cement it. And I thought they played really well in the 3-3 game at Ibrox last season. Particularly in the first half, they totally outplayed Rangers. maybe that's not going to happen, but they're going to have to defend well in moments, but they're going to have to pass the ball better the way Brendan wants them to do that. But the two wide men are such a threat, honestly, and you can never take your eyes off Kyogo either. So I'm not expecting Celtic to win, but I think Rangers will find it difficult to beat them.
There's a wee suggestion that Celtic may be looking at 2 players to bring in the January transfer window. Give us an insight as a manager as how difficult it is when you say to all your aides, I'm looking for 2 players, I'm looking for, let's just say, I'm looking for a left back, I'm looking for a winger.
Yeah, but January is such a difficult month because there are players who want to leave clubs, but there are other clubs don't want them to leave, or they do want them to leave, but they want top dollar for them. So sometimes deals just don't get done, Peter. I understand what Brendan's thinking is if they want a couple of players in just to bolster the squad, because they're still, I think they'll get into that middle bracket in the Champions League, and then they'll have a playoff for the last 16, and then they'll be going all fronts in the league and obviously the Scottish Cup as well. So yeah, it's just so difficult to get deals done. So they've probably been working on it from now.
Does it become frustrating when you say, I want him, he's first choice, no, get him, he's second choice?
Yeah,
Tell us what your
it's
mind...
frustrating, but it's the reality of it, and you have to accept it. And sometimes the deal doesn't get done until 11 o'clock on the 31st of January, honestly. Wow. I've been in that position many times before. Particularly the last couple of days are really, really frenetic. And then at the end of January, you're just like, thank God that's over. Yes, I'm happy with that, but unfortunately we couldn't get that done, or they didn't want to come in the end, or the agent messed us about, blah, blah, blah. All these things are taken into consideration.
And can you nip in the bud the suggestion that the manager just doesn't see that player? Will Brendan look and say, okay, you're an agent, you've given me his best bits on video. My God, even I could look good at 5-a-sides if I just sent you the good bits, the whistle blowing and then the whistle at the end. What is Brendan? Will Brendan say, right, I've had a look at it, I'm going to have a look at him again? What do you do?
Oh, you want to go and see them if you can, right? But I mean, it's really like Brendan's timetable is full. Do you know what I mean? So it's really difficult for him to actually go and watch a player live. So he'll be relying on the scouts and all the reports that are coming in, and obviously bits and pieces on the data. But if Brendan will look at it, you probably know the player already and say, yeah, he fits up the type that I want to play. Can we get this done? But I always found great benefit in going watching them live, but it's very difficult to do these days. And
is there an agent or an aide to you that you always, you had a collection of, a list of people that you trusted that you thought they know a player?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of good agents with, like a good roster of players, and we did a lot of good business with a few over the years, and you learn to trust their judgment then.
Would you sign Kieran Tierney?
Well, he went off injured again last night, didn't he? It might have been just cramp. Listen, if Keiran was available, you'd have to think so. I just wonder about what his strength and conditioning is at the minute. There's no doubt about his ability or his quality as a player. But he's on huge money as well, Peter, at Arsenal. But I'm sure he'll be desperate to get out and play regularly. But he's just had such a difficult time with injuries as well.
Do you think they'll be aware of that rather than being clouded at Celtic by sentimentality?
I don't think sentimentality comes into it. I know him and Brendan had a really good relationship as well. So if there's any talk of that, there'll be an open and honest conversation between the two of them.
He looks as if he's one of those guys that would walk over broken glass and maybe take a financial hit because I don't think he ever wanted to leave Celtic.
No, he did. Because, I mean, the offer and the opportunity to go and play for Arsenal, was just probably too good to turn down for him,
Yeah.
So, he's been there for, 4 or 5 years. I think he's a hell of a player. We just haven't seen that much of him lately. And if Celtic could get him back, it would be a major coup.
Yeah, and with that in mind, just another player that I thought I'd get your thoughts on. Callum McGregor's been in 23 cup finals and he hasn't lost one of them. Right. I mean, he's just, the record is incredible.
Brilliant. And then he goes up and takes a penalty the other day. You run out of words to sort of, describe him. He's such a great role model. He's such a great professional. He's a great leader. I think he's got a real good tactical brain. He's just one of them players that, he's that good. When things don't go so well, the first person you look to is the captain. Cal, what's happened here today? Because he's just so consistent. I mean, he's just a modern day great, and you know, I think he's got plenty more in him as well.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at you and the way you used to play and lead by example. Scott Brown was a different character as a captain as well, you know, more aggressive. Callum's not that, I mean...
No, he's not a shout, but he's a talker, you know, and he's an organiser, and and he leads by example. I mean, he's so consistent. You know, he's got 6 goals this year as well, and that's another thing he's added to his resume, if you want to call it that. But I don't take for granted what he does, because he's at the top of his game week in, week out, and you know, it's not an easy thing to do, Peter. And he's only 31, so God knows how many more trophies he'll win.
Do you think he's a treble winner this year, or is that too close to call with transfer windows? And
yeah, I don't like to call it. You know, a long way to go. And anything can happen on any given day. So I just think at the minute Celtic will be focusing on Dundee United. They've still got a heavy schedule of games before they play Rangers.
Yeah, and with that in mind, what about yourself?
Looking to get back in.
Yeah.
You know, I've had a few sort of chats with clubs, but the opportunity wasn't the right one for me. So yeah, I'm enjoying the media side of things as always, but yeah, I'm looking to get back in and have another crack at it.
How difficult is it? What's that process? When I look at your CV and I think of the players that I've spoken to who regard you highly as a coach, how difficult is it? Is it almost as if your agent has to become a marketing executive?
It's really, I mean, you just got to send your CV in and hope that you get the opportunity to do an interview then. You do a lot of networking, you do a lot of processes with the LMA and with your CV itself, and just keep sort of trying to enhance it and add to it. And, you know, you hope that it catches somebody's eye, but it's so competitive. You know, and my last 2 jobs have been outside the UK, and it may be the case that I have to do that again, but I'm not averse to doing that, you know, because I just love football and I love coaching.
Yeah, is it one of those definitives where you say this is the one last job? Because sometimes Martin O'Neill would say, you know, he knew there was a point where he thought, well, maybe the phone just stops ringing, but maybe you reach that point where you think this is the last one.
Yeah, you say that though, but then, you know, when you're out of it for a while, you get the itch again. Like, so, I mean, I've said this could be, you know, the last one if I do it for another 2 or 3 years. But see, if you still got the energy, Peter, and you think you can do it, then you don't stop.
Yeah, well, listen, I hope you don't stop, because I think you've got so much to offer football, whether it's here in the UK or across Europe or even further afield. Neil Lennon, thanks for your time today. Thank you very much to Neil. Don't forget, you can hit the subscribe button on PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel. We've got so much unique video content. All you have to do is make sure you download the app as well, and you'll have all the breaking news at your fingertips. Thanks for watching and listening.